Hello, welcome to my podcast. Here I am with Mae Ling. So first, we're going to do some really quick introductions. We're just going to go through your name, what school you go to, what's your major, and where you're from. So I'll start. I'm James Blomgren. I'm your host. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota originally, but I go to school in Indiana at Purdue University, and I study environmental engineering.
Cool. I am Mae Ling. I go to Kenyon College. I am a sociology psychology double major. I come from Canton, Ohio, so an hour and a half away from Kenyon.
Cool. So today we're going to be talking about our topic for today is political apathy among American college students. So May, as an American college student, did you vote last presidential election, I should ask.
Let's see. Last presidential election was 2020,
2020.
and I turned 18 um 2022.
Oh, okay.
So I was not able to vote.
Fair
I
enough.
would have though. I would have voted.
You would have voted.
Um,
Have you voted for any other elections recently?
yes. Yeah. We just had our primary for March and I voted in that. And then also our general election.
Good to know. But let's kind of get into the actual problem. So political apathy, what is political apathy? Well, it's basically whether how people feel about voting. Apathy specifically is kind of an emotion. So this whole concept is kind of hard to measure through quantitative measurements, but usually it's measured through voter participation. And so I looked at some studies and I found that it's remained relatively stable since like the 1900s. Like voter participation of college age kids really hasn't changed that much. But that's still like it's still very low, I guess. It's had about 10, it makes up about 10% of voters, even though they're probably more than 10% of the population. So now we'd like to talk about some causes, like why do you think why do you think people don't vote, I guess? Do you have any
I think,
initial causes?
yeah. So my best friend is somebody that definitely does not understand voting in general. And I think it's just kind of been a lack of information that's been given to her about how the government works. Because if you don't understand something, you're gonna not likely want to ever really understand something and continue being able to be knowledgeable in what you do know. And if that's not the realm of politics, or just in general being able to vote, then you're not going to have people who want to vote. Um,
Yeah,
it's hard to also engage a population, I think, for especially young adults because they have a lot of other things going on that they're more worried about. Um, academics, knew that was coming.
yeah.
Academics, and then
uh,
also you have other
Jobs.
things, jobs, like they're not really focused on the political side of things unless that's something they want to go into. They're really just focused on how they're going to make it in the real world, no matter
Yeah.
what the politics are.
So you
So,
would see politics as kind of like it's not something that's a super high priority for a lot of college students. It's kind of
yeah.
like something you would do in your leisure time because
Mhm.
it's not really built into like normal work-life balance. Like your family
Yeah.
doesn't engage with politics and your work doesn't engage with politics. And so you
Yeah.
have to kind of like squeeze it in. But I
Mhm.
mean, I was thinking like a lot of people don't engage with it because it's really not that fun.
Yeah.
I mean, are you thinking like the other things you could do, like go to the
Yeah.
gym, go for a walk?
Right.
It's not up there.
Yeah. It's it's also like really interesting because um yeah, I think growing up, that was something that was also very, it was touched upon in some of my classes in history and government, but it was always about like how how we got to where we are now. It's
Hmm.
never really about, you don't really take the time in high school or even in the early times, at least for me, I don't think I really learned about voting. Um, you learned about, World War One, World War Two, and all these different wars and ways that we've created ourselves to have a democracy. but
Hmm.
never really talked about the present with
Like
the
how to maintain it.
democracy. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking like it would have been really helpful in like an advisory class in high school if we had all registered to vote. Although I guess I don't know if you can do that when you're under 18.
I know, that's like it's very interesting, I think, as well, like how the rules work
Hmm.
with like registering people to vote
Yeah.
because I know that here in Ohio, like you can register to vote if you are like 17 or 18 if you get your driver's license or your state ID. They'll ask
Hmm.
you if you want to register to vote as well, and then that process is kind of done.
Oh,
Um,
that's nice.
yeah, and like, but like that's not available if you get your license like an average person at 16 because you are underage, you
Oh
can't
yeah.
vote. So then you have to go through the process of registering to vote. And I think that also deters people because again, that takes time. That's
Yeah.
boring. Giving information. And it's like to do what? Fill in a little bubble and like have it count? Like that's I feel like that's that's usually what people are thinking, and it's just not important to them.
Yeah, I feel like especially since it's different across state lines. That's the thing that
Mhm.
really got me is like it's different in Indiana, it's different in Minnesota, it's different in New York, and these differences make it hard to kind of have like a cohesive understanding of like these are the steps to vote. This is about how long it takes. You know, it'd be nice if it was kind of like a national process, but
Mhm.
that gets into like voter um
Voter fraud?
yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
That gets into like every state has their own regulations and kind of
Mhm.
check boxes that you have to check. And I just thought it was interesting that like this, so we have all this infrastructure built up to prevent voter fraud, and we still have rigged. I mean, like people still argue whether or not the elections are rigged. And like we've
Yeah.
seen, like in 2016, there were some outside influences
Hmm.
despite all this infrastructure.
Yeah. It's and like I think also the way that our government has worked in the past 8, 10 years has been polarized.
But I've heard like if you like as polarization increases, of course people get more emotions in it.
Hmm.
And that's actually one of the things that drives people to vote more. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, wow,
Yeah.
I really, really don't want this candidate to win. So I'm
Hmm.
definitely gonna go vote because I really
Yeah.
don't want it. And so I thought that was a really interesting or that was a really surprising take on polarization because I've always heard of it as like this is a really, really bad thing. And it
Hmm.
definitely has a lot of negative aspects, but that was just one really interesting thing. It was
Yeah.
like, hey, if we made politics more like entertaining, I guess, maybe people would participate more. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but then, what are we really doing?
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely like feels it feels like it's I'm like watching reality TV in a way.
Yeah. And that's kind of
Um,
like it kind of draws people into a certain amount. But it,
mhm.
but then again, you don't engage with reality TV, you're not a part of it. So I think
Yeah.
that can also push people away.
Yeah. It's
So we've talked about some causes, but some solutions. One of them I saw was involving people more. So instead of just having people vote, it's like, because you put in your vote, goes away, and you do that what? Most people probably do it every 4 years. Some people do it maybe every year. But maybe we could expand that. We could have other ways of engaging people in the political process. What are your thoughts on that?
um I know here at Kenyon we actually have a huge thing surrounding like being able to vote. And because like our voting registration process here is pretty simple, we do have something on campus that's like Center for the Study of American Democracy.
Hmm.
And when it comes up to be like a general election in November or the primaries in March, we actually have people who will like table in our dining hall. And because it's the only dining hall on campus, um, that everybody has to go there to eat.
Yeah.
So you kind of just ask people if they are registered to vote. And if they're not, then they can go through this simple process. And there are people there, students, so you are getting a student to student interaction, um, of like being able to help you fill out how to register to vote. And then also like to request an absentee because a lot of college students aren't able to go home to their state to vote. So they can request an absentee if they don't want to fully. And then this is where it gets weird again because to be able to register, like to be able to vote in Ohio, you have to be
Mhm.
an Ohio registered voter. You're living here for, months at a time, but you still have to register to vote as an Ohioan, to be able to vote in Ohio. But you could be from a complete different state,
Yeah.
but all of your stuff is based in Ohio. Or you could be a a resident in my roommate's from Colorado, um, a resident in Colorado, and then request an absentee ballot, send it to Colorado, and get an absentee ballot specifically for your county from
Mhm.
your state. Um, so then it gets confusing again. Um, and I think a lot of people like struggle with that because we also do have somewhere in our area that we are able to like vote at, but because like I'm not registered for this county, I'm registered with my county at home. I have to
Mhm.
request an absentee so I can vote at home in my home county. And it's just complications again. It's like how do I know? But thankfully, our center is like able to answer all of those questions for people who do not know like how it works because obviously you don't want to commit fraud, but
Yeah.
it's important. And so you kind of have students helping other students with understanding why this is important to um, should be important to them and then also like because there's always been like a lot less young adults who are voting, you're kind of like raising those numbers. And the funny thing is Kenyon is situated in an area that is pretty Republican.
Mhm.
But the funny thing is when you put a liberal arts school
Yeah, all of a
right
sudden
in
it's
the middle of
democratic.
that, you can turn the polls so quickly. Um, and it's really interesting to see, especially when you do like have that engagement with the students. And I think my favorite part is like I'll go to request my absentee because then I don't have to print it out myself. But then there's this person who goes up to the table and knows the person who's helping at the table, and then you have that person um, who knows other people,
Yeah.
and then you have other people helping you ask if they're registered to vote, and if they are, like, have you requested your absentee? It's just a whole it's snowball effect.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's very helpful to have that, I think, at least for college settings.
Yeah, and it'd be nice to have, oh yeah, I guess it would be nice to have one of those kind of just available for good
Yeah.
information at various colleges. And I think even in the workplace that would be available. That would be
Yeah.
nice too. So that people didn't have to take so much time out of their day.
Yeah.
So
True.
these are some good solutions. So just to close, like, are you planning on voting next election?
Yes.
And are you going to vote absentee or in person?
I'll probably vote absentee again, unless something happens and I'll vote in person, but absentee.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll figure out how to do absentee and then
Yeah.
get my vote in. All
Yeah.
right, well, thanks so much for coming here today. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.